On stage, we have Mr. Julian Mountain, Mr. Philip Taylor, Professor Sajnani, and Dr. Sadhu. And before giving the floor to Mr. Lefebvre, the moderator for this session, I would like to make a humble request to all the speakers and panelists to ensure that their interventions are kept within the allocated time slot so that we can wrap up the session promptly at 6 p.m. and have enough time for questions and comments at the end. Thank you. Mr. Lefebvre, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests and member of the corps, welcome to you all again to this new session, number 3 of the day. I would like especially to thank the authorities because sometimes we are always on their back when something goes wrong, but when there are good things happening like this session, I think we must pay a tribute to all the organizers and the people who have made this event possible. So a big thank you for that. I would like also to thank Mrs. Koala just before because I've noted a good tip for me. I've just opened a pizza restaurant, so I'll take good note of your delivery and I'll make sure that my scooters are heavily equipped to escape the police. Thank you. So the theme of the session is enhancing destination competitiveness through technology and innovation. Before we start with the panelists as well, I would like to share with you some remarks or some things I've experienced as well. In 2004, when I was actually starting my career in Paris, I think we are today at the very crossroad of our industry, meaning that there are many things changing, evolving, and very fast. We see that through technology, of course, but also with the environment. And I remember back in 2004, when I was visiting all the agencies in Paris, that everyone was saying that all the intermediaries will die, especially the travel agents or the tour operators. Things were still a bit cloudy and uncertain, but at the end of the day, we see that nobody really died, but everyone has evolved. It's a bit the same with not only the industry, but the behaviors and the people. We see today that the consumer is more and more savvy and very contradictory as well. We see the behaviors are many times in contradiction. Give you an example, we have clients or consumers who go on the web and really feel independent. They want to be independent, but they need contact. They want to be IT focused and IT savvy, but they need authenticity. They need some luxury component, but at the same time, they want simplicity. So the market is evolving, the people are evolving, our industry is evolving as well. And I think the theme of today is also very key because I think our destinations also need to adapt to all these changes and the ball games which are happening today. I am with me a great panel. As speaker, we have Julian Mountain from the Last Minute Group. We have Mr. Taylor from Hospitality Plus. We have the chairman of Air Mauritius, Mr. Sadhu, and we have a professor as well from Amity, Mr. Sajnani. So I think we will cover all topics needed today through different case studies, but also through a bit of theory with Mr. Sajnani. And I promise I will keep him short because you know all professors can be very long. So before we start, I will just give the floor to Julian. And in order to keep the session ongoing, I would like to, Julian and each the panelist people to just stand a bit after the session so that they can answer for a 5-minute question right on the way for their topics. And then we'll do a little wrap-up at the end of the intervention. Thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you, Fabien. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it truly is an honor to be here. On your right-hand side, they are locking those large wooden doors from the outside. So we're in here for a while. I am joking, don't panic. Yeah, my name is Julian Mountain. like the big rock. I've heard many jokes about my surname. And I represent the lastminute.com group, or the travel people, which is the media and partnership side of the lastminute.com group, representing multiple digital brands which transact in about 17 languages. And 10 million passengers a year are booking through our platforms, flights, hotels, dynamic packages, which gives us access to large volumes of data. And we are helping tourism boards and lifestyle brands access this data to drive competitiveness, essentially. I live on the northern slopes of Table Mountain, which is quite a great place to live. And it's also where my digital career started in 2003, where I was using Google platforms to drive traffic to Expedia's websites and to eBay. And when I was trying to explain to my parents what I was doing for a living after studying economics on the other side of Table Mountain, my father kind of looked at these platforms and saw eBay and Google had lowercase letters, and they were in primary colors, yellow, blue, red, green, and he just kind of thought it looked a bit frivolous and childish. Back then, again, 2003, so quite some time back. Fast forward to today, I'm expecting twins, or jumeaux, in September this year, two kids. And to reference Professor Lipman earlier, there is a lot of thinking going through my head at the moment about what life will be like for them when they are 20 years old. And especially with the digital evolution that I've seen in my career, how do I future-proof my kids, my future kids for this? Do I need to send them to coding classes when they're 6 years old? Or do I give them an innate sense of curiosity about the world around them and the digital platforms that they'll be exposed to? I don't really have answers to these questions, but I do hope they're curious, healthy little creatures. So, I mean, throughout the sessions today, we've had a great exposure to how digital is changing the planet, the way we communicate, the way we present ourselves, the way we live, especially in travel. So I think I'll just focus on a few areas before zoning in on destinations who are using digital platforms to promote themselves and to enhance the digital experience when users are there, as well as providing a few case studies. But on these points here, how certain areas of the planet are being changed considerably by blockchain. Security and identification is one area where the decentralization point of blockchain is considerable. And I've got a fantastic use case which was brought out in New York last week to present to you. Then in finance too, blockchain can remove intermediaries, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in these initial coin offerings as businesses be built on the blockchain. Fantastic areas, as well as healthcare, which has blockchains giving significant benefits to healthcare with a lot of mobile data. Now, this was at a consensus conference. This is a large blockchain conference that was held last week in New York City. Now, I guess the attendees would be comprised of some incredible technology leaders and wizards, with a few dodgy cryptocurrency traders, as this area is kind of finding its feet. But there was a vending machine at a big conference hall in New York City that was distributing beer. It was a partnership with a blockchain provider and Budweiser's parent company, Anheuser-Busch. And you can be pretty sure that this would be 100% foolproof if this was a marketing stunt being run in New York, where verification of age and a user requesting a free beer from a vending machine is actually 21 years and above. And this was run off the blockchain identification systems, which is quite something if you consider the implications for airports, ports of entry, and identification of users' passports or guests checking into hotels. A very, very exciting space. And then how blockchain will change travel. I mean, there have been many examples of this presented already, but passport control and disintermediation. Disintermediation, exciting, but also a bit terrifying, as I do represent an online travel agent who is an intermediary. So it's a space we are watching very closely, and we need to, and evolve with it. So some of the innovations in travel. these VR headsets as brochures at travel exhibitions and conferences where destination officers are really kind of selling themselves to the trade and to consumers. You do see quite a lot of virtual reality, augmented reality, in a sense, replacing brochures. Robots welcoming you at hotel check-in, we saw that in session 2. Hotel rooms automatically adjusting to your preferences. Quite exciting, as long as the preference is accurate. Speech recognition, artificial intelligence, and really no need for a passport or potentially even Forex when traveling. This is an example of a small riad in Marrakesh, Morocco, which basically grew itself by inviting 1 or 2 Instagram heroes and influencers to the riad. The riad has a beautiful swimming pool area with green mosaics, fantastic gardens. It's also in quite a private area of Marrakesh, Morocco. So you can imagine visitors from Europe in Marrakesh right now during Ramadan wearing bikinis. They certainly need to be in quite a closed-off area. But this has been called a social media pilgrimage, where this riad has grown in incredible popularity because people have found it on Instagram, and then they visit this riad and then post the same images on Instagram, to the point where the social media influencers are actually arguing amongst each other. Well, hang on, you took a shot, very similar, same swimsuit, same pose, same placement of your plate and teacup. It's really quite interesting, but again, this is a micro destination that has just promoted itself on digital. But it does also pose an interesting point, because this has become such an homogeneous social media experience, where people are seeking out almost the exact same experience and sharing the exact same image and hashtags on a well-known digital platform. So yes, we're seeking personal experiences, but to Fabian's point earlier, there is a lot of contradiction where we see consumers and travelers potentially a little bit confused with the power of technology that they're looking at. In Dubai Mall, I had the privilege of attending this virtual reality park. It's probably about 6 stories large. It is essentially a theme park, and it's centered around virtual reality experiences. The image you see here is a guy who's actually sitting in a mock wheelchair with fake blood on the floor, and he is playing a version of Walking Dead, which is a series where zombies are basically attacking humans, in a sense. So this is such an incredibly immersive technology, and it's great fun, a little bit scary, but you can also skydive in this theme park in a virtual reality environment. You can rob a bank with your friends in a virtual reality environment. So very exciting and very, very well shared amongst digital influencers and those who are curious about new technologies. And this is a big calling card at the moment for Dubai tourism to, have a VR experience in the mall. Granted, the experiences aren't cheap, but a very interesting use case of a technology which in one sense is used for promoting and potentially replacing tourism brochures, but then also the gaming, the arcade, and the theme park side of virtual reality. And thirdly, the Smart Island World Congress held a few weeks back was trying to tackle over-tourism and sustainability, but specifically looking at this problem through a digital and data lens, and how data can inform and predict over-tourism and try to drive tourism in shoulder periods or away from kind of core areas. I guess it was quite centered around Mediterranean islands and Caribbean too, but the biggest issue that they were contending with was in peak season, sometimes the population of an island will be 6 times larger than normal. So the waste and all the associated problems with this form of over-tourism, bit of a problem. So the data used, it was flight search data, travel intent data, as well as actual social media sharing data, pre, during, and after periods, with enhanced algorithms to inform and predict over-tourism events and potential catastrophes. Definitely something to watch out for, and a smart use of sheer volumes of data that are available and narrowing them down to be able to predict and work together. This year, I've been to 4 and now 5 amazing international travel conferences, And I just wanted to share a little bit about each one where there were some interesting thought leaders presenting and sharing great information and ideas. So the first one was ITB Berlin, where a gentleman by the name of Doug Lansky was giving advice for destinations, and specifically the way they market themselves. And his view was just avoid the vanity metrics, the number of Facebook likes, the number of shares, all those sort of things. Let's rather get more actionable and focus on ROI and seek out the profitability per arrival. Arrivals and visitors mean, it's one thing to attract them and spend marketing money acquiring them, but rather look at a profitable view. Then at the World Travel Market in Cape Town, the Mauritian Minister of Tourism presented something fantastic on the history as well as the future of Mauritian tourism, which was a really good way of looking at things. Look at the past to kind of inform the future. That's always good. And then the head of Airbnb Sub-Saharan Africa, Velma, was giving us access to data of 400 check-ins per minute on the Airbnb platform, which really inform the fact that people are real human beings and they want to stay in real homes and have real experiences, which is very much Airbnb's drive at the moment. They seem to have home sharing ticked, and they're really expanding quite aggressively into the experiences, which definitely affects tour providers. Then at the Arabian travel market in Dubai, yes, there was a lot of virtual reality, but the Seychelles and Jordanian tourism boards were presenting their views on digital marketing and how they are evolving their businesses around and adapting. And the view from the Seychelles was, well, be experimental, be curious. And they've actually purchased quite a few kind of VR camera, 360-degree cameras and drones, and they're just kind of playing around and experimenting with new technologies. As for Jordan, their view was to use user-generated content as much as possible, because Jordanian tourism couldn't tell the world that it's a safe place to visit, but by virtue of having other people visiting and sharing, that message got kind of transferred across. And then at the Africa Travel Daba in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, a few weeks ago, destinations without crisis plans, that was quite a big topic. Especially in light of, I guess, Cape Town's water crisis, and the fact that it was termed a crisis, and there were headlines like Day Zero, i.e. Cape Town running out of water in a finite period of time, was potentially, well, it was a bit of a crisis from a tourism perspective, but managed as well as possible using digital media to transfer messaging in real time as soon as possible, which you see Hawaii doing at the moment. In the wake of the volcano, and also Congo's unfortunate Ebola outbreak, which has taken a few lives. So the view from a digital standpoint and how you can set things up from a destination, digital, and marketing perspective, taking an example from Visit Sweden, where if you look at their LinkedIn job specs, they actually have a CXO, or instead of a chief marketing officer of a destination, they've labeled that title and try to really mold the business around chief experiences, and that is now a chief experience officer, where every visitor is having an experience when they are in destination, long before they get to destination, and post being in destination. So it's really about that kind of experiential rather than just flat out marketing. And that is, those experiences are informed by technology and digital and data. So that's quite an interesting viewpoint. Also looking at kind of compliance and policies is governance could be kind of shifting to flat, where your destinations could be seen as a kind of a startup mentality, where they are agile and quick to make changes. But this, of course, requires significant changes to procurement policies. So one thing we look at with a lot of tourism boards is the digital user journey, which starts, it looks like a very linear process, starting with a broad kind of inspiration phase. Yes, people have their bucket list of destinations they want to go to. How do you get your destination to the top of that bucket list, high up the consideration set, and then move a user through the booking process, the purchase, the pre-trip information, departure, and then through to the journey and social sharing post the journey. So if you look at that, it does become quite academic, and our data shows that not all travelers follow that linear path to purchase. Not everyone is a highly involved digital researcher doing the 17 Google search queries and then checking in with friends, as well as being highly engaged on user-generated content. A lot of people are just looking at a quick price comparison, availability, and then booking. So that is something that destinations need to take into account. Yes, that linear process happens, but not all user journeys follow that. And if your bottom line is attracting visitors, yes, you still need to cover the inspiration side of that, but also booking. So the solution to that would really have kind of a holistic approach where you have an always-on marketing approach. So one way we would do this is looking at a digital ecosystem for a destination. And rather than a linear approach, have a bit of a circular vibe. See, the door wasn't locked. So you can see the sunset. So focusing on inspiration and education with key objectives and key deliverables, followed by kind of an engagement and content distribution, where you'd be distributing your content to your key audiences. Reviews and recommendations following suit, and then consumer activation, so ensuring bookings and visitor numbers are arriving. And then overlaying core KPIs into each of those areas. So under the education and destination inspiration, really, your classic media reach and frequency, insights on audience perception changes, running research pre and post, any marketing activity in your core inbound markets, your volume and quality of content, that really is key. And we find destinations who are doing this well are running national, regional, and city-based content in a kind of cohesive manner, so that there are not multiple messages going out, and the consistent and the content is beautiful and consistent. From an engagement and content distribution perspective, the reach of your content, reach of native content, and your search reach key. And then from a review and recommendation point of view, looking at engagements, how your user-generated content is growing, and obviously the sentiment around that content, which, taking you back to the example of the Small World Island Congress, can inform and predict things like over-tourism or a lack of demand for a particular destination. And then, of course, consumer activation, the incremental bookings. These matter, as the incremental destination searches and your booking conversion rate, where ultimately you could have a media spend KPI, which would look at your number of bookings per 100 clicks, rather than having multiple metrics. So that could be something to consider. And then just looking at the that customer journey, I guess us against some of our kind of key competitors in the online booking space, and how we have coverage across all of those areas rather than just a few, which definitely alludes to having coverage across that user journey, always on. And what's new in that kind of inspiration and education phase? So we've looked at a lot of our data and actually partnered with both Rough Guides and AccuWeather, because Rough Guides, well, I mean, our customers are always looking for ideas, what to do, where to go, and when they're in market, what's happening there. And Rough Guides travel books have got an incredible editorial team, which we can leverage, and our audiences overlap quite well within that inspiration phase, as well as AccuWeather. I mean, the weather affects our mood. I'm sure there'd be more smiles if those doors were open right now. Because there's some sun shining, and AccuWeather has incredible volumes of destination signals and destination intent signals. We're always looking at weather signals when looking to travel or pre or post travel. So again, something that we've added into our mix for pre-trip planning. And then what's new in driving user-generated content? Travel insights and our pre and post kind of travel mailers, which can definitely access another form of research. So I'll just look at some case studies quickly. Mauritius have, on one of our social travel networks, Wayne, 450,000 people who would like to go there. And we've been working with Mauritius for quite a few years to convert that intent into actual visitor numbers and bookings. Then Dubai Tourism, they've also quite focused on driving 20 million visitors by the year 2020, quite an immense task. And they're kind of looking at touch points across that travel planning cycle with upper funnel, middle, and lower funnel targets and KPIs, which they give to their digital partners. And then a short case study for Kenya Tourism Board, where we used our network of properties to deliver messages to different audiences. Yes, the classic Kenya safari audience, but Kenya were looking to also branch out into other core destination pillars and educate our audiences about those, specifically around water sports, which is fantastic for surfers. There are actually some great surf spots near Mombasa. And the results of this were ultimately that core point of 41,000 users who expressed an interest in traveling to Kenya, which is a strong destination travel intent. So just touching on some mistakes I've made, I think it's always refreshing to kind of look back over a bit of a digital career and just life in general, especially the way I've always been curious about digital platforms and the way they will evolve. And yes, I've made mistakes. The one might be twins. I guess I'll know in time. But another one was when I was running Google AdWords campaigns for clients. When you set up a campaign in this platform a few years back, the default setting was to target the world, the whole world. So anyone searching for the keyword that you were trying to buy in an auction globally would be targeted. So that would run through your budget very, very quickly, especially if you were targeting 1 or 2 markets globally. So as a default setting, I would like to think that it was a mistake on Google's part, but I'm pretty sure it was intentional to burn through budget a lot quicker. So that's a mistake I made. But I think how that could be applied is, yeah, always read things and always be curious. And then in my career, especially when I've been involved in kind of on the agency side, working creative and media agencies, hiring some people. I've often hired on qualification rather than hiring on curiosity. And if you're hiring someone to build an innovation hub, qualifications sometimes don't mean it. Often it's about the curiosity, the people reading the technology blogs and forums, trying to access information on how a new chip might enhance artificial intelligence and do coding on the weekends. That is an innate sense of curiosity, which can definitely be applied to destination marketing offices. Do you have those curious people who are always experimenting and trying out and learning new digital platforms? Yes, some of them won't be here in a few years, but others might really be the ones that we leverage and are strong in a few decades' time. And then the last mistake I've made a few times is actually planning around clients' financial years and not around consumers' and travelers' life cycle. That can be quite key because planning around a financial year for an organization can be very, very limiting, especially if you look at consumers who have a completely different view of the world. For example, a media planning company for diapers. Why would they follow a financial year of Procter & Gamble or Unilever? They're looking at moms being born, or moms falling pregnant and babies being born all the time. Much like travelers, they are researching, purchasing, and in destination throughout the year. So yeah, try not to have peaks and troughs based on your financial year and your procurement cycles. Yeah, those would be some mistakes that personally I've been involved in and yeah, I wouldn't want to see repeated. So yeah, to counter that, look at kind of an always-on digital marketing. So some case studies, some ideas, some mistakes learned, but now what? Where to from here? Really feel the priority focus areas should be developing and growing a marketing culture of curiosity, because that links so strongly to technology, digital, and enhancements and changes in the way you can market a destination. So regulators really need to collaborate with policymakers to allow an address for these innovations, forecast trends, and act quickly, fail fast, and repeat, but make changes and keep on advancing, keep on being competitive against your competitors, and embrace the digital revolution and overcome the shortcomings of these legacy systems. And ultimately, yeah, that curiosity that comes from upskilling and training and continuously doing that. And ultimately develop a tourism digital strategy aligned with regional, cities, strategic, and that has to apply to content too. So, yeah, thank you very much. Questions, comments, name suggestions?
Thank you, Julian. I think it's been very enlightening to see as well that normally when we go digital or we talk about e-marketing, it's more about products, hotels, your end product. And we see that this ecosystem is also a very good platform for destinations. So thank you for this very informative presentation. So if any one of you would like to ask direct questions to Julian, please do so.
Hi, Julian. Hope you're well. Is there anybody from Kenya here? The reason I'm asking is you mentioned a case study that you did earlier on Kenya, and you also spoke about Indaba. Now, for whoever attended Indaba, you would know that Kenya was a last-minute cancellation or no-show. I would like to find out from you your thoughts of these type of shows with changing the digital platforms and marketing strategies. Do you think they'll become redundant, or will there always be a need?
Thanks for your question. Of the 4 shows that are referenced, that I've attended this year so far, 3 of them were large commercially run events. So they were businesses. Indaba was the one of the 4 which was not commercial. It was actually a South African tourism event. In terms of last-minute cancellations, which made a bit of a scene at some events, yes, Kenya pulling out at the last minute, it was noticeable, as was Qatar pulling out of the Arabian travel market, where last year they had a significant presence, but this year, you know, with some movements in the GCC markets, Qatar had pulled out. The events, in my experience, even with digital and the move of digital, are still irreplaceable because of that human-to-human connection and meeting people from all over the world in one place at one time. So, yeah, I still fully support them. Do you have any name suggestions? Okay.
Any further questions?
You've spoken about Kenya and fairs, and then we're looking at digitalization. My question is, in today's world, Kenya has made a big decision this year by not going to trade fairs anymore as the government. The private sector goes, and I see there's an uproar a bit. The private sector wants the government back in. With this world of digitalization, what would be your advice to tourism boards and to governments? Is it to be present on these fairs, which are costly? Or is it to play this new road or this new avenue of playing the digitalization market, of having everything online, of flooding the market? Earlier you spoke about Seychelles and trying to find this, you say playing around with this new cameras, 360 degrees with little drones giving you immediate pictures. If you call a hotel today, you can see it by the drones that are flying over it. These are all the pushing by the trade in one way, and by the one on the other side who wants to see everything before coming out. A lot of it is done at trade fairs in the past. Today everything is being done online. What would be your advice?
To measure and experiment. I would imagine it would take some time for Kenya to understand the monetary impact of the decision of allocating budget elsewhere. But ultimately, you need to set up a way to measure if that investment is better spent on digital platforms. So yeah, ultimately test, be curious. That's not the most definite answer, but ultimately if you are going to pull out, you need to know why, and I think commit to that. But I would rather commit to that through decision making and iterative testing. So before making the decision to pull out of these trade fairs or to pull out of a particular digital channel, rather do small tests. So maybe don't attend one trade show in a smaller region of the world, and then monitor your inbound visitors from that region. Much like a digital channel, where, to be fair, with digital you can test and see your results a lot quicker. But yeah, that would be my approach. Just
measure and track. Thank you. So we now move on. I invite Mr. Taylor to do the presentation, and we'll mainly talk about multi-channels and also GDPR. So thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Fabien. Thank you to the Ministry of Tourism. A particular thank you to Minister Gayan for being so committed and staying with us all day. I know you are a busy man. Showing commitment is important to us. Thank you. First thing that I'd like to say is, I'll be very honest to you. Very often when I deal with people in technology, that's what I do for a living. I only started about 6 years ago. And very often when I talk to people in industry, in technology, I don't always understand what they say to me. I'm very honest. I often get very nervous talking to people on conference calls because they use technical jargons that I don't always understand. And I think it's very, very important for us to try and go back to basics. And the basics is trying to demystify the whole issue about digital processing and investing in digital. I'm quite saddened today to see so few industry leaders with us. I know them, I know all of them. I work with every single hotel in Mauritius. And I see very, very few leaders and decision makers. And it's very sad. I mean, we often complain about not having enough interaction with government. And for once that government is organizing such an important event, I am deeply saddened not to see more leaders of our industry here today. Let me start. I'd quite like to try and define, I'm going to talk about mega trends in hospitality and tourism as I personally see it. I represent and I'm a director of several organizations, some of them working with about 44,000 hotels in 161 countries, 404 airlines. We connect about 600,000 travel agents around the world. We connect tour operators, OTAs, and we've created a mega platform for the hotel and tourism industry. We often talk about blockchain. Again, I'm going to try and demystify what blockchain is all about. What is blockchain? I think blockchain just came up a few years ago. I mean, people use the jargon blockchain without quite understanding what it means. Blockchain is just connecting organizations around a common platform. That's existed in the hotel and tourism industry and airline industry for quite a few years. So I'm going to try and simplify my language so that we can all try to be on parity to understand what I'm trying to say. Trends, mega trends. Let's just try and understand what a trend is. It's just a general direction in which something is developing and changing. It's all market-driven. What we are seeing today is literally market-driven by demand. Markets are shifting, and we're going to shift with digital. Again, I'd quite like to come back to some of the realities that we are living in today. You know, some of the key drivers of change as we are currently using on a day-to-day basis, the fundamentals are driven by mobile technology, social media, and the cloud. We often forget about how simple these three elements were and changed the way we live. You know, mobile phones, all as we know them today, smartphones as we know them today, only came around about 12, 13 years ago. No one would believe that because we use them so often every day. But 15 years ago, we had no smartphones. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, they only appeared on the market about 8 years ago. They've changed the way we live. We spend more time looking at Facebook than anything else now. The cloud. I mean, the cloud, I don't really understand how it all works, but we know about the cloud. The cloud has reinvented the way we work today. And that only came in about 8 years ago. Before the cloud came in, we did things differently, and most of us have already forgotten about it. who have been the champions, the first to market? The first to market principle applies to everyone. If you're going to use a mega trend or an important technology, you are more likely to succeed than your competitor who's not using it. You know? M-Pesa, few people know about M-Pesa. I'm not going to talk much about it. M-Pesa changed the world of money and the way we make payments in Kenya. M-Pesa was invented in Kenya, and Kenya, with their M-Pesa system, leapfrogged the whole mechanism of payments. You know, they were way ahead of the rest of the world in terms of payment. Mobile payment in Africa is more widely used than anywhere else in the world. So are we going to see Africa and the developing world leapfrogging countries like the United States or Europe? I think in many ways, yes, we are. Airbnb, Uber, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, Apple. I mean, the iPhone. The iPhone came out about 12, 13 years ago. The iPhone, not Apple, the iPhone alone killed single-handedly several industries and products. How many of you are buying CDs? How many of you are buying alarm clocks? How many of you are buying cameras? No one. No one does anymore. But we don't think about this. I mean, calculators. No one buys a calculator now. That's all driven by the fundamental technologies that I mentioned earlier. There is a complete natural cause and effect to technology. Technology will continue developing simply by demand. Yesterday's champions have disappeared. You know, some of you will remember a guy called Tom Peters. Some of you may have read his book. Many of you would have never heard of him. Tom Peters was a guru. He was a leader of strategy. And every prediction he made in the 1980s probably happened in the 1980s. But every single company he mentioned as future stars have disappeared. They've gone. They don't exist anymore. And that was only 20 years ago. Now, natural cause and effects. We're talking about demographics, children, kids. You know, the Generation X as we know them. You know, 44% of the world is under 24. They were born with technology, and they're going to do things differently to us. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm very saddened not to see decision makers here today, because when we talk about digitalization, many leaders and many decision makers, people deciding on budgets and expenses, see digitalization as a cost, not an investment. And this is where we need to be able to convince them. And there's another cause. Sorry, I forgot your name, but you mentioned earlier that you were quite saddened to see a lack of investment in digital. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. But one of the reasons for that is that the bulk of hotels and operators in the world today, as we know them today, the Hiltons, the Marriotts, they don't own hotels. Hotels are owned, and operators are owned by investment funds, by banks, investment banks. And all these guys are short-term driven. They don't give a damn about long-term goals. All they're concerned about is their share price and their short-term profit. And that's one of the reasons we're not seeing enough investment going in, because these investments are long-term investments. So what impact are we seeing on our society as we move on? I mean, businesses have been reinvented. I mean, when I talk to my parents, they have no idea what I'm talking about. They've got no clue, you know. When I talk to them about Uber, Alibaba, Facebook, Airbnb, they simply don't, we're disconnected. I mean, Uber owns no cars. Facebook is the world's largest media owner, but creates no content. All this has been driven by digitalization, by the cloud, by the mobile capabilities. We live in a massively invasive world. I mean, we've got so many options, so many choices. It's confusing. Our clients are confused. We are confused. One of the key fundamentals that I'd quite like to share with you, which is a very worrying issue that we have to deal with. In Mauritius, most of the hotels in Mauritius, many of you are here today, use our reservations system platform. So we can actually measure data statistics quite easily. We don't share them, but we know. One of the concerning calls that I've noticed in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years is the increase in cancellations. Some of you might not be aware of this, some of you might not be concerned about it, but cancellations are becoming a massive issue. How do you manage up to about an average in Mauritius? In Mauritius, we are seeing up to about an average of about 21% bookings being cancelled from all digital channels, which includes direct booking, Booking.com, Expedia, the OTAs. 21%. It's a lot higher than elsewhere in the world. I think we should try and find out why. People book and people cancel. These are dynamics of markets, market dynamics. It's all due to competition. Hotels and destinations and airlines are relaxing their terms of sales. You're free to cancel 30 days before you check in. And if you don't do that, people won't book with you. And people traveling will book 2, 3, 4 hotels, 2, 3, 4, 5 destinations, and they decide 30 days before check-in. And we are seeing a massive increase in cancellations. Without a proper digital process of management of reservations, you will not be able to manage these cancellations properly. I've been asked to accelerate, I will do so. Hyper competition, I went through that. It's all driven by digital. Power of reviews. 5 years ago, reviews didn't exist. TripAdvisor didn't exist. Today, bookings are driven by reputation. Systems and digital solutions exist out there to help hotels and destinations better manage their reviews and reputation. Demanding consumers. Consumers are clearly becoming demanding because there's so much choice out there. Decision makers are coming from all spheres. I mean, most of the decision-making for long-distance destinations like Mauritius are decided at family level. And kids, Generation X, younger kids, have a huge influence on their parents because they see, they use. We've shifted from a B2C, business to customer business model, to a P2P. P2P is a peer-to-peer. People are dealing with people now. A typical model of that is Uber. You talk to the taxi driver himself, you communicate with him, and that's the way the model is going. People are looking for self-service. We are seeing a complete disintermediation of business. I mean, TUI is here today, I recognize their value, but if they don't change their business model, they might be out of business soon. Loyalty. We are seeing a massive erosion of loyalty, and we're also seeing a high rise of the cost of management of loyalty programs. And this is a big concern. The biggest loyalty program that you can have today is your Facebook, and that's free of charge. Data overload. For those of you that are not in the hotel industry, you might not understand the impact of this. If you had 10 hotels in your group, 50 room types, 100 rates, 50 channels with which you worked, 4 seasons, you would have to deal with about 10 million rates per year. If you don't have a digital solution, forget it. Something I'd quite like to touch with is resource, the ability of using systems. One of the problems we have is we implement systems and they're not being used properly because people are not qualified. They don't understand. So training is very important. I'm happy to see Vatel being involved here today. They are playing a key role in trying to raise the standards of these resources here in Mauritius. Ongoing development, global tourism is growing, fine. But I think that digital is actually pushing for that development. Digital is enabling that growth and not the other way around. I'm not going to talk about these trends because there are many, many trends in industry coming up. Predictive intelligence, I mean, we've already spoken about that.
Aradhana, you spoke about that at great length. I'm not going to talk more about that. Data, more data, we've spoken about that. Yeah, we need to manage these seamlessly and in a very simple way. Massive Excel sheets with thousands of figures no longer is of use. I mean, you need graphic data, simple data, not overloaded data. Tech, more tech, we've spoken about that. I'm not going to repeat myself. You know, augmented reality, facial, voice recognition, artificial intelligence, bots. I mean, we've gone through that. Changing rules of engagement. Security is a major issue these days. It's far more important than you think. Self-loaded blockchains. I mean, blockchains has existed for quite a while. I beg to differ. I mean, you know, we as an organization offer blockchains to the whole industry. We have built many blockchains ourselves. Security and compliance. GDPR is massively important. You know, it's all about data protection. It's all about personal data, data breaches. Recently, there was a big flaw in Facebook. We were all made aware of that. This is coming into execution. It's being executed on the 25th, which is Friday. On Friday, you need to be compliant. You may be blocked off from any EU countries, your websites, for example, if you're not compliant. Alibaba today, as we speak, is running around becoming compliant. They might be locked out on Saturday morning in Europe. And I mean it. It's serious. It's very, very serious. The Europeans are taking it very seriously. What to expect next in a few seconds? Rising challenges, of course. Data breaches will increase in numbers, frauds. We can only expect more. Regulatory measures, we can only expect more. It's going to become increasingly painful to work, actually. I mean, anyone trying to get a contract with a bank today will know all about it. Compliance will not just be limited to banks. I mean, hotels and tourism will have to play the game as well. Blockchain demystified. Please, let's try and keep things simple. Let's try and use a very simple vocabulary. That's what we try and do in our organization. We try and demystify the whole thing. Blockchain is all about connecting different players around a common platform. In very simple terms, you know, Mauritius operators cannot stand in isolation. We have, in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, been building the local blockchain, and we have been successful at doing it. We've built a B2C platform, free of charge. We've built a B2B platform, which we're launching on the 1st of June, free of charge. We are connecting about 516 tour operators seamlessly to each hotel's inventory on the 30th of June. We are building blockchains. You know, blockchains exist. Now, is the blockchain centered around the destination, or is the blockchain centered around hotels? It's something that we will have to decide. But I personally believe that blockchain should be centered around room inventory and rates. You know, the stock of rooms. It'll be easier to manage your blockchain from there. I don't have time to talk more about that, but it's something that I believe in. Business models will continue to be challenged. They are going to become more and more challenging, more complex to understand. We are perhaps going to see more and more outsourcing. What we are already seeing is BPO centers being developed for tourism and hospitality segments. And this is likely to increase. Hotels, for instance, very often cannot manage the digital processes themselves. They're all cloud-based. They can be outsourced. Outsource the management of your reservations, for instance. It can be done better than you do. Change has been and will always remain a constant, the only constant. I've rushed through this. I wish I could stand here for a few more minutes. I can't. I'll come back to my seat. If you've got a few questions, I'll be very happy to attend to them. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Philippe, for this very passionate and interesting presentation. So we take just one question, please, just to move on with the rest of the session. Anyone? Okay, so I now invite Mr. Sajnani from Noida in India to do his lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Than Honorable Minister, before I start my presentation, 2 commendations and 3 observations. 2 commendations: I have attended many conferences, seminars globally. Rarely I have seen a minister sitting for the whole day for the conference. This really is a manifestation of the seriousness of this conference. I, from the core of my heart, can admit this thing, that His Excellencies are sitting from different countries for the whole day. Such seriousness I have not seen before. Unless and until it is a meeting of a UN level where policy decisions are being taken or are to be taken. And second commendation is, in the conferences, either we have the academicians or we have the executives. Rarely I find that an academician is placed with the executives, sharing the dais with them, so that both the pictures, what researcher, what a teacher, what a scholar has to say, and what an industry person has to say. So we can share our platform, we can share our thoughts. 3 submissions before I start my presentation. My presentation will be colorless. It will be black and white, though I'm using PowerPoint presentations. May not have that kind of power which you are having since morning. Number 2, I'm a teacher. I'll go as per the title given to me for the conference theme. That is enhancing destination competitiveness through technology and innovations. You might see I have underlined certain words. These are the key words for me as a researcher, as a scholar. Third important submission for this presentation is, I'll read out some of the case studies, because I believe without getting into the past, I cannot handle my present and I cannot project my future. What is happening in the world today when we talk about digitalization, when we talk about ICT, when we talk about every kind of automation being done for whatever results, for whatever outcome, though I am talking about tourism and hospitality. I have noted down, for the sake of repetition, some of you may have gone through these reports. They are very recent reports from across the world. Royal Edinburgh Tattoo, annual traditional Scottish tourism events attended by the members of British royal family, has got a modern twist from 2018 with the help of a Chinese internet giant, WeChat Pay, to enable growing number of Chinese visitors to purchase tickets, merchandise, and other services by using their smartphones, resulted in 89% increase in the sale of tickets and merchandise by the Chinese tourists visiting place. Number 2, Carnival Corporations, world's largest travel company, signs agreement with China's leading online commerce leader, Alibaba, to enable guests to make online purchases using Alipay platform. Number 3, I am repeatedly using China as a market because it has been the duty of the planner to see which are the emerging markets so that I can tap those markets for my inbound market. Number 4, Tourism Toronto signs a new strategic partnership with OTT, the financial group, the organizer of WeChat Pay, into a local tourism business to boost travel and shopping consumption by Chinese travelers who will be able to pay directly in local currency using WeChat Pay. More than 840 million active users use this tool. Number 5, Carnival unveils near-field communication and Bluetooth low-energy enabled wearable device called Ocean Medallion, designed by the man behind Disney's Magic Band, allowing users a wide range of next-generation services, including boarding without checking in, unlocking rooms, accessing personalized entertainment, ordering food and drinks, and making payments. Locations are tracked by the system itself. This is 1.8-ounce device that can be attached to a jewelry, to a clip, to keychains and bands, or carried in pockets, which works with XIOS, a platform, in an IoT, Internet of Things, network of intelligent sensors, and experiential computing devices embedded throughout the ship, home ports, and destinations. Why I'm reading out all this information is this is all about how to make my destination competitive with the use of technology and innovations. We have to learn. I'm a learner, I'm a scholar. Guests can link any number of credit cards, reward cards, gift cards, and advance payment services to make the payment. Number 6, Japanese, I picked up examples from different countries. Japanese government run the trial biometrics authentication-based payment services to enable travelers to make purchases using their fingerprints. Initially started at hotel check-ins, points in popular tourist areas. Now they're expanding it to other parts of the country. Number 7, Baidu Wallet mobile payment services launched in Thailand, South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, enabling travelers to use this wallet to scan the QR code of apps, partnered merchants, and enter the amount need to pay. Number 8, Barcelona. Barcelona, somebody referred to in the morning, I remember, I think Professor Lipman referred to this. Barcelona equips 8,000 city locations with NFC and QR touchpoints to deliver information on local services directly to visitors and residents on smartphones. It is based on a web app, so it is accessible to any type of mobile, either through tapping the NFC tag or scanning a QR code, making city digitally friendly. Number 9, digital tourism project launched across Philippines, combining e-books and mobile apps with NFC and QR codes placed at tourist attractions. Now, land of India, I come from. Ministry of Tourism, Government of India launches Android, though we are a little late, but we have started doing it. Android mobile application tripigator.com, which is an official travel planner, which creates personalized itineraries matching users' preferences while integrating maps and geolocations-based discovery of details to enhance travelers in destination experiences. All these are the best examples of how well technology has created, through innovations, a range of real-time experiences for visitors at destinations. I have got many of them which I have noted down, but I thought before I start my presentation, I should read out some of these success stories to pick up from. Next, please. This is what actually we mean when we say digitalization, when I want to provide all the inputs about my destination on digital mode. Easily accessible. Competitiveness. We have been hearing since morning competitiveness, World Economic Forum's ranking out of 137 nations on the list. Where do I stand? Where does my country stand when it comes to the indicators? Out of the indicators, one is also technology. To what extent my technology is to the date? A tourism country's competitiveness is important, especially when countries strive for bigger market share. We are fighting for bigger market share. Do I stand among the top 20? If not, I should assess, analyze why. It is important for managers to identify destinations' competitive advantage and analyze the destination's competitive position in international tourist markets. Now, these are the, if you find I've only given 20 top 20 countries on the competitive index released by the World Economic Forum 2017. Following model, there is a simple model which I have picked up, adapted from a researcher's work. It says it is modified. We have the inherited resources, we have the created resources, we have the supportive resources, then we have the situational conditions, and then we have the demand-driven conditions. We have to manage all these as a manager in a technically supported manner, digitally supported manner. Are we able to do this? If we are able to do this, there is no doubt why I should not appear in the top 20 list of the competitive index. The examination through this model will tell me as a planner, where do I stand? What are my strengths? Do I stand strong in one of the component, in both the components, in all the components? Where I need to improve so that I can pick up my work where I have to start from. To quote Stephen P. Stephen D. Pike, a great marketing strategist from New Zealand, the battle gaining competitive advantage is no longer a battle of products and services. That's what we have been talking about. It's a battle of tourist perceptions. Therefore, it is a battle that takes place in the mind of tourist mind. I have to get inside the tourist mind to know what services, what level of services, what level of technically supported services my tourist wants. Tourist destinations can be, I'll skip because much has been talked about these. So we all know tourism is not just one product. It's an amalgam of various products and services. And each of these products and services, they need to be dynamic. They need to be competitive. So there are a range of stakeholders who play important role. I mean, my previous speaker talked about various stakeholders. He has covered most of that. So stakeholders have to talk, and there comes the role of e-tourism. There comes the role of digitalization, ICT. Am I able to do that? I think I'll have to skip. Now, these are the stages where ICT can play a role. We have got dreaming, we have got researching, we have got making decisions, then we have got consumption of the services or products, then comes sharing. I remember when I was in Vancouver, Vancouver has come out with a V-Pole. V-Pole is that area which is a central area where I can go, and this is a Wi-Fi area, and I can start sharing my information with my friends, what all I have experienced in the city, smart city. Example applications, much have been talked about the ICT-based applications, how and which all areas are covered in Europe. So Europe is example. Europe is example. Professor Lippmann said that Europe, it is because of tourism that Europe is combined, is one. So best example to learn from for tourism ICT is from Europe. So all these ranges of applications are provided to make tourist purchase, pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase stages comfortable and an experience worth memorizing. I'll skip these. These are all known ones. So, but they cover most of the components of our travel. ICT supported e-tourism management operations today, whether it is airline, whether it is tour operation, whether it is a hotel, everywhere we have gone E. We are using E mode, whether it is the e-purchase, e-procurement, e-consumption, we are using E mode. But how safe is this E mode? Important to understand. Blindly getting into this circle of E may not be safe. So before I start running the race with other competitors, I should analyze, do I have the safe environment? Do I have the safe security system? Do I have 2 more minutes? Injustice.
You told me to remind you because you've got a plane tonight. Okay,
I'll rush because most of the things are covered in the previous. Do we have a provision of network infrastructure? Do we have cyber security? Do we have ICT, domestic production of ICT? And do we have business environment to support it? That is very critical. The European example, I'll talk about Visit Europe. Many of us know Visit Europe. How Visit Europe was developed into virtual tourism observatory. How the data for decision making was provided to all the member countries. And then it became a Calypso web platform where most of the systems were merged into one. So there is no repetition or there is no control required. You maintain only one system and you get all your data into system. You make decisions on the basis of the decisions. All tools are into one. I have to hush now. Tourism Link is a platform, again, from the Europe, because as a teacher, I need to pick up examples from success stories only. I repeat that. So this is DIMSAT. DIMSAT, again, is a decision-making support system based on decision sciences. It is important for decision makers to understand the ICT aspects of tourism. Where all we can apply ICT, these are the areas, whether it is marketing, whether it is selecting and developing, monitoring and destinations, whether it is consumer relationship management, whether it is the any area for that matter. I'll move to, all stakeholders, it is important that there are 3 stakeholders for a destination: private, public, and the local community. Local community is the most important, which I think Aradhana mentioned, that they need to be educated. Not only the managers need to be educated on the application of ICT, but even the local community need to be educated, exposed on such tools, and how these tools can benefit the local community in a sustainable manner. What are the deliverables for them? So we need to educate them on that. In short, destinations competitiveness can be enhanced through technology by providing technology embedded environment, IoT, this is all covered, I'll skip that. Smart, I'll take one more minute. Smart tourism tools, wherein we have got soft smartness, wherein collaborations, partnerships, innovativeness, and leadership, which can be achieved by destinations. And there are the hard smartness also, technology embedded infrastructure. That can be domestically done, or it can be by the using of the third-party platform. We can achieve that. To conclude, best way in which tourist destination can enhance their competitiveness is not only through the innovations and application of ICT tools, but also by implementing the right smart tourism tool to deliver enhanced tourism experience. Ultimately, we need to see how I am going to deliver value to my customer through their experiences so that I get loyalty. I get loyalty and I get a sustainable experience. Technology alone cannot enhance the destination's competitiveness and sustainability. Rather, managers responsible for planning and implementation need to use these technologies, tools innovatively and effectively. Thank you.
We'll keep the last session for questions. Apologies for spinning you up, Mr. Sajnani. We end up the session with the chairman of Air Mauritius, our national carrier, who will explain a bit the integration of the digital era within the company, within Air Mauritius. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Minister, all protocol observed. This is a tall order for many reasons. One, it's the last presentation of the day. B, perhaps more importantly, everything I was going to say has already been said and more, so I'm not quite sure what value added I'm going to bring. And on top of that, the chairperson just said, can I be a little bit quick? So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to skip a lot of the PowerPoint presentation that have been so generously provided to me by staff of Air Mauritius. I will go straight to the point. But I think before I do that, I will also be failing on my duty if I do not show you a little bit about Air Mauritius itself. What are we doing technology-wise to enhance your trip to Mauritius and from Mauritius? Like I said, a lot's been said already. I'm not going to go through all this, but we all know that traffic movement, passenger movement is on the increase. Increasingly, IATA is telling us to expect more and more people to travel. Some 8 billion people will be traveling in 2036 and so on, mostly from the Asian countries. We all know that. We also know that the target market is evolving. It's no longer for pleasure only or for business, but the combination, and for many, many reasons as well, which I'm going to go through. The millennial generations there. Question is, we need to cater for the needs of all these varying target markets. How do we do that? Can we use technology to personalize and customize the product and services? Otherwise, IATA is telling us we're going to have huge problems on our hands. This is a potential situation at the airport. We don't want that. What is the solution? Passengers today and tomorrow, they are very demanding, and quite rightly so. They're paying their money. They want to be independent, self-service attitude, and so on and so forth. How can technology help us? Otherwise, if we don't provide that service, then through blogging, and we know that perception of people will change, and when perceptions change, the business is affected. IATA has already provided a number of guidelines, principally to airlines, how to handle the increase in capacity. I'm not going to go through all this stuff, but the old ways of just comparing prices when you buy an airline ticket's gone. Now it's the complete service, pre-travel and post-travel, that comes into play, plus all the reviews that you have. Going quickly on that, again, the fast travel aspects. At the airport, the scanning of your document, your passport, all these are becoming quickly obsolete when the passenger needs to get through as quickly as possible. Now, we can argue that, all these things are the hardware side, the hardware of how do we make the passenger, the traveler's experience more seamless. And there are many ways of doing that which Air Mauritius is considering. For example, you can now, through kiosk at the Plaisance Airport, you can do your self-checking, and we have apps that will allow you to do that quickly. And these are, I think, in the outer stations. But all these are very good. We are doing what we can to make the passengers' travel smoother, using social media and so on and so forth. In future, hopefully, we will have virtual reality in helping the marketing. On the sustainability side, I wanted to show that slide. I think it's a very important one. We've talked about sustainability and digitization. It's good to know that for every single takeoff of Air Mauritius airplane from the airport, we plant an indigenous tree. So far, we have over 6,000 trees planted because of the one takeoff, one tree policy that we have. And of course, reducing the carbon. What I wanted to talk to you about is that a lot has been said today about machine learning and artificial intelligence. To me, this is the what. What do we need to improve the traveler's experience? What do we need to improve the whole hospitality business? What hasn't been talked so much, and I'd like to touch base on that, is how do we, as a country, how do we, as the industry, make it happen? And who are the major stake players in making it happen? We've heard about organizations using AI. We've heard about individuals using machine learning. But as a country, can we come up with a national strategy to promote AI and machine learning and so on and so forth? And that's what I want to focus. But before we do that, what is this business of AI? I wanted to say that those who are not interested in the science, please close your eyes. This is not for you. But it's amazing. I've read somewhere, and I think it's true, every single decision, every single action, every single event or outcomes or even experience can be somehow digitized. It's a weird, it's a crazy, it's a frightening thought, but it is true. You take, for example, this whole conference. Pre-booking, the in-conference, the post-conference, your attendance, your age, your sex, your gender, everything has been digitized. We have it in bits, it's zeros and ones. It's a scary thing, right? No. Now, these are what we call the feature extraction. If for every seminar we extract those features and we put that in a kind of what the mathematician call a matrix form, the feature extraction and the outcomes, and if we do that for thousands, if not millions of seminars, we have the basis of machine learning. The computer can learn from these and even do predictions. That is the basis of machine learning and on which AI is kind of born. AI is a simulation of the brain. How well, it's arguable, but basically it's supposed to represent the neurons in our brain, and feeding all those data and matching it to the output is the basis of the AI. And these are some of the... What I like most of all is the concept of reinforced learning. Why do I say that? Because this is the form that leads to artificial intelligence. Reinforced learning is about when the algorithm learns to react with the environment. And I'd like to take Professor Liebman's point earlier on. What came first? And the minister's point, digitization or sustainability? I think somebody had replied, professor said, sustainability should drive digitization. I agree, but there is another way of looking at it. The process of AI is to react to the environment to choose the most optimum solution. And you can, in principle, say to your AI, look for the best or least carbon-generated travel for me. So in many ways, you can also argue digitization can lead to better sustainability, if I can use that kind of word. Right? But the question is, we've talked about the application of AI and how we can improve the business. Blockchain has done that. What I wanted to focus is this particular slide. I think at country level, what needs to be done? Collaboration is not going to happen among robots. Collaboration is needed for a complete AI environment to flourish. I say that because Data is what AI thrives upon. And all institutions and individuals, we are generating data right now. And unless we have a policy of sharing that data, forget about AI. All the environments where AI is flourishing and bringing benefits are environments where there's data sharing. So it's a question of the airline, the airport, the hotels, everybody else who has data coming together, taking, of course, into account the confidentiality, the commercial aspect, and so on. But unless we have at national level this regrouping of the major stakeholders, those who are willing to share the data for something in return, of course, we are not going to get AI, because AI is first and foremost about the data. Finally, what would be the impact of AI? A lot of people have said it's going to lead to loss of jobs. The bad news is, yes, it will lead to job losses in the short term. The example I've just shown here is the impact of AI or the introduction of Uber on New York taxis. If you look at what's happening, recently, Uber is now more popular than New York taxis. There's a lot of jobs having lost because of technology. But that is a fact of life. We cannot get around this stuff. But the good news is that eventually AI will lead to more job creation than job losses. I think something that we need to take into account. I was trying to be very quick and short. In essence, I'd like just to finish with one little thing. Although we're going towards AI, without people's collaboration, there is no AI. And I would dread to see the day, I hope I never see the day, that when you enter on board of Air Mauritius, you are greeted by a lady robot saying, "Welcome to Mauritius." I hope that day never comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Air Mauritius has been instrumental in the development of the country, and not only as a carrier, but also as a marketing organism through the different offices worldwide. And it's very nice to see that Air Mauritius is embracing the turnaround in the digital turnaround as well. So we just end with one or two really short questions, please, before closing the session. Yes, Mr. Lippmann.
No. Yes, it's working now. First of all, my question is to the chairman of Air Mauritius. I enjoyed very much not just your presentation, but the way you skipped through it in a very thoughtful way. And it's the slide that you showed at the end when you were looking for a national strategy, which I thought was really a very strategic, obviously it's a strategy, very strategic approach to the whole thing. It seems to me that of all those people who have a willingness to share data, whether it's in Mauritius or anywhere else, the biggest challenge will come from those people concerned with national security. How would you see a possibility to get round that? And as you answer my question, perhaps you can help me with another one. I thoroughly enjoyed my flight down on Air Mauritius. I was less enthusiastic about receiving the 2 forms for entry, which required identical information from the same person. And I wondered if you thought you might persuade your authorities to be a bit more imaginative about that.
I totally agree. I hate filling those forms as well. It's a total, disarray, and it doesn't go into the concept of digitization and so on. But we've taken note. I'm sure the Honourable Minister's taken note as well on this issue. But getting to your point of confidentiality of data and national security, I totally agree. There are limits. We have laws in this country called the Data Protection Act. And of course, we have the other law called open data. If it is government data, then government is trying its best to put almost everything that it is collected through government means online for public consumption. But I'm talking about anonymized data. A lot of companies, I don't have to spell out the person's name or whatever thing, but I can give a lot of information about my customer to some other organization in a very anonymized manner, not revealing confidential data. In other countries, they do it. What I think needs to be done is that the stakeholders have to agree on a platform, but more important than that, it should be a platform where there's equity, a win-win-win situation, to promote not only my organization, but to promote the destination. And I think, to my mind, the Minister of Tourism is possibly the best facilitator to make this happen and create that win-win situation. Data is the next oil. And I keep saying, no data, no AI. You know, it's as simple as that. And we need Mauritian data. I cannot use European data or South African or whatever thing. Where is the digital Mauritian data? It is yet to be created in an amount enough for us to get an AI industry. And then, of course, there's the region. And then, of course, there's the world. Yeah.
Thank you. One last question. So thank you very much. I would like to thank the panel as well for their intervention, and sorry for bothering you for the timing. I think it closes the day. Thank you to all. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much to the panel for your fruitful deliberations and to all those who have intervened today. I have a few announcements to make before we close today's program. We are hosting an awards ceremony and gala dinner tonight, which are by invitation only, at the Intercontinental Hotel. Transport arrangements have been made for the foreign delegates who have received the invitation to depart from this hotel to Intercontinental and back to their respective hotels after the event. The transport is already on standby outside the lobby, so you can make your way there when you're ready. Bearing in mind we have to reach Intercontinental by 7 p.m. Secondly, tomorrow morning we are organizing a coral planting ceremony at Trou aux Biches, which will start at 9:45 a.m. All overseas ministers and heads of delegation have been invited. Transport arrangements have also been made to the Trou aux Biches beach from this hotel. Lastly, tomorrow, as you are all aware, we have a very charged program, and I therefore kindly request you all to be on time in the morning so that we can make the most of the day. The Honourable Minister has just reminded me to inform you that it takes around 15 to 20 minutes to reach the Intercontinental Hotel from here. So ideally, we'd like to have everybody invited to the gala dinner and award ceremony to be in the transport by 6:30 from here to reach on time to Intercontinental Hotel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention, and have a wonderful evening.